Okay, if you're going to do any kind of ignition job, you're going to need to know what tools you're going to have to use. So we'll go over them real quick here. Now, if I miss something, I'll add it as we go on in the video. But these are the absolute essential basics here to basically do cap, rotor, wires, and plugs. First thing you're going to need to start, the spark plug boot puller. It's a heck of a lot easier than trying to yank on a wire and a lot less likely to damage the wire. I've actually had wires come out and leave the boot behind, and then they're pretty much useless. Pen to mark so that you can keep track of what spark plug wire goes to what plug and where it goes on the cap. Nice, handy thing to do. That keeps you, that's in the case what we're doing here, we've pulled all the wires and plugs, but we marked their positions before we did that. So next thing you'll need, once you get the plug wire off, you're going to need a socket, ratchet socket, 5/8 inch socket. Spark plug socket preferably, usually has a little bit of rubber, whatever in there to kind of hold the plug. This is a 1/2 inch drive with an adapter. I just use this because A, I have the room to do it, and B, it gives me more leverage. You can use the 3/8 as well. You just can't get quite as much leverage. The plugs shouldn't be super tight, but they're going to be snug enough to where you'll have to kind of break them free. The other tools we have here, flat blade and a Phillips blade screwdriver. This is primarily useful when you're trying to do things like put the distributor cap on, take it on and off, because the screws on there work better with the flat blade than this. This is good for like putting the distributor rotor back in, screwing that down, and whatever else you may need to do. A file when you're cleaning, and later in this video you'll see. This is good for if you're going to try to clean up your cap and rotor. If it's just needs a little cleaning, it doesn't need replacement. This is good for knocking off some of the crud. One thing you don't see in here, a little bit of sandpaper, the same thing would be cleaning. Just a light tap on this. Over here, spark plug gapper. And the way this works is basically you get the plug on the end of it. You find the right size. See, it's marked off here. And this funny thing is actually just a piece of rubber hose that fits nicely over the spark plug. This is for getting into strange areas with your plug where you want to just get the thing started, but you can't get your hands in there and you can't feel what's going on. This you just basically put on the end of the plug, kind of like so. Here I've got a plug and a vise here, but I just kind of stick this on here like that. See, now it's nice and tight. There we go. And then once it's in there, you can kind of finagle your way, find the hole, and just kind of start it with this, and then continue the tightening with, of course, your ratchet. But sometimes you just can't quite get in there and get a good feel. Other thing I'll say about putting any screw in, especially when it's blind and you can't see, is I always like to try to, once I find the hole, I like to try to basically, instead of, if I don't think I've caught a thread, I like to actually turn it backwards to try to see it, then turn it forwards. That way, if it goes easily, I know I'm not cross-threading. So that's how that works. And of course, finally, some cleaners. So we'll clean up contact cleaners. And this stuff you buy, this isn't carb cleaner, this is electronic cleaner. It's not the same thing as brake cleaner either. This stuff will not harm or melt plastics, which is important because a lot of the parts in the ignition system are plastic or rubber. It's harmless to that. It just cleans the contacts. I use this stuff to do an additional hit on the ignition components that I can clean up, which would be the cap, the rotor, that kind of thing. Maybe even a plug if I'm looking to reuse plugs that aren't too old and worn out. But just spray it on there. And after you use this to clean this up, it'll take out the carbon and crap. That's when you start using the files and maybe a little sandpaper. Finally, we'll leave it up to the DVM. This is good for testing things like coils, pickup coils, secondary coils, spark plugs, all that. Mostly you're going to be looking at the resistance setting. Usually the 2K ohm is sufficient. I kind of go over what to look for a little later in this video, but basically this is going to be, you're going to be using this for resistance meetings. Resistance is everything in an ignition system. You want a certain amount of resistance, but you don't want too much. Too much basically kills off your spark, and then you don't have any fire in your cylinder, and that's not a good thing. So that's an overview of the tools and a little bit of getting in how we'll use them. We'll continue on from here.